Hello, you guys, and welcome fucking back to the podcast. It's so funny. I just got a message from our podcast episode, and she's like, I'm working on the 50th podcast episode, and we're getting that out. And I'm like, I never announced that we had a 50th episode. So, anyway, this is a post 50th episode announcement of I can't believe we've been doing this podcast now for 7, 8 months, actually a little bit longer. And I'm so excited for just like the impact that you guys are, sharing that this podcast is making, the insights that you've given me on podcast guests. And one of the things that I think a lot of you guys have been interested in is just understanding how to optimize yourself and what it looks like to show up as your best self and operate as your best self and lead as your best self and make money like your best self. And so I was so excited to have my client on today, Andrea Alonso. She is such a mindset genius. And I don't think you can even see that just from like her content or what she's doing. But when you speak to her, the literal genius that pours out of her, it is insane. We talked about cycle syncing, which by the way, you guys, I've made very clear I know nothing about. We actually were talking on a call once and she was like, oh, you're in your blah 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 phase. I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? So if any of that is new to you and you're like, I don't know about this, I don't know, this feels very woo-woo, you have to listen to this episode. It was so insightful, especially as a very type A person, understanding how to utilize my cycle and how my cycle works in order to optimize my routines and my production and my sales. That was super helpful. We talk about like mindset shifts that you guys need to make, things you can integrate into your day to day to become more aware of yourself and how you operate and how you lead. This is definitely an episode for my mindset girlies. And if you're not a mindset girly, fuck off. I swear to God, you need this episode anyway. Because here's the deal. You guys know I love living in strategy. I love living in the type A. I love living in the like, give me the blueprint zone. And this episode, honestly, I left and I was like, I need to do 18 more versions of this because it was so helpful. So it's a nice, quick, like 30, 40-minute episode. Literally, like, go grab your coffee, go grab whatever you need, go out, go listen to this, get outside, take a walk. This is going to be an episode you will not want to miss. So I hope you guys enjoy. Andrea, welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I am really pumped because you're going to be talking about something today that I actually have no knowledge on. It's very interesting when we have a lot of business coaches or mentors come on. Like a lot of the times we're talking about things that I like have a lot of experience in or a lot of perspective on. But we were on a call one time and we were talking about cycle syncing. And I'm like, what the fuck is that? So for anyone who is as, I guess, naive as me or just like out of the loop as me, can you explain like what is cycle syncing and like why do we need to know about this? Because I've literally, until you said it, had never heard about this ever. I feel like as a woman, I should have. That's kind of embarrassing, but it's fine. I'm just new to the game, just new to the game.
Yeah, and I think that's the same for most people as like finding out about it. Like I found out about it in 2021 and I was like, oh my God, this is going to change the game for me. Cycle syncing, basically, men have a 24-hour clock. So their hormones
Yeah.
go like up and down, same every single day. And like that's how the
Yeah.
world is built. You're told to like do certain things at certain times of the day, have your coffee at 3 p.m. because you're getting kind of tired, things like that. But for women, our clock is basically 28 days or however long your cycle is. So our hormones peak and they fluctuate throughout 28 days rather than every day. So there's 4 different phases, and at the different phases, you have different energy levels, your hormones are in different places. And so cycle syncing is basically the idea of syncing your life up with your cycle. So your nutrition can change, the types of workouts that you do can change. And then what's really helpful for female entrepreneurs is the way that you work changes. And so when you're in sync with your cycle, things feel a lot more natural. And we can go into the phases a little bit more, but it feels a lot more natural rather than, there's days in business where you're just like, like I do not feel like recording content today. And there's so much like push in the mindset and in the business space of like, you just gotta like make yourself do it and stuff. And that works at times. I'm a big believer in like energy and pushing yourself. But if you were aware of your cycle, you might actually realize, you know what, this is actually the wrong time. So I'm creating resistance for myself rather than being in sync and actually being in flow and then things flowing a lot more naturally.
Yeah. Who introduced you to this? Like, was this something you learned from someone? Was this something you like heard of and then did research on? Like, how did you figure this out? Or like, when was your first introduction to this?
So for me, personal development and goals has been my obsession for like all of adulthood, maybe since I was a teenager, really. And a big part of that is health. And I've had a lot of health challenges. My family have had a lot of health challenges. So I'm always like researching, how can I be healthier? How can I like perform better? How can I have more energy? Things like that. And
Yeah.
I don't know what it was, but something just appeared about it in 2021. I was like, oh, this is really interesting. And there's a book, it's called In the Flow by Elisa Vitti. It's amazing. That's kind of where I got a lot of the information from. And then she also has an app called My Flow. And I know people use different tracking apps for their cycles and everything, but this one actually gives you the cycle syncing information in the app. So it tells you what
Oh,
phase you're in and like what you should eat in that phase and how you should work out and how you work better. And so it was mainly just learning those things and then applying it, like actually being like, oh, I'm in my menstrual phase right now. I should be doing this. Oh, I'm in my luteal phase. And even in the last year, I've really like synced more into that. And I've learned so much because I'm like, I think it's in some ways like different for different people, or the examples can be kind of different. I can share some of mine, but when you do it yourself, you start to kind of each month you just get one opportunity to like master your luteal phase or master your follicular phase, but each month you learn new things and then you kind of own it and you're like, yeah, I know that I'm like this when I'm in that phase of the month, so it's better to like line up my work or my workouts in a certain way.
that makes so much sense. And I feel like I could go down like the rabbit hole about my first introduction to like men in business versus women in business. Cause I used to remember like when people would be like, oh, you're in your masculine. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck that means. Or like, you're in your feminine. And like, I kind of always felt like that was just like an excuse of like, women can't be like men or this. And then I really thought about it. I'm like, look, like we are built different. And like, I do think there are massive differences in the way that we operate, lead, think about things, make decisions. Like, but I think we really miss a big part, which is just like our bodies and like what our bodies do. I mean, like it's insane. And so I remember when you were talking about this, I kind of went down like my own little rabbit hole of like the corporate cycle was meant for men, like the 9 to 5 structure of corporate America was meant for men, which is why a lot of the times when I'm talking to women, they really don't feel like they fit into that 9 to 5. Like for me, I like working at night and more energy at night. Like I really always struggled with that. So it's like super interesting now as you're talking. I'm like, yeah, that like this all it all makes sense. But you know, when you're like not introduced to something, you just don't know where to go with this information, or you just don't like think anything of it. If there's not like a term or something tagged to it, you're just like, oh, maybe I'm just making excuses, or maybe this just doesn't work for me. So I find that super interesting. I do want to hear though about the phases because again, I think a lot of women on here might be a little bit more knowledgeable than me and might know a little bit about cycle syncing, but I know you have a lot of knowledge on this. So can you explain what are like the different phases? What should people be experiencing or thinking through in the phases? Like, give us the rundown on that if you don't mind doing that.
Yes, absolutely. Another thing as well I'll say is that I worked with a coach on this. She's at FemFuse on Instagram and she's amazing. And I think, you know, you and I know the power of coaching, but it really makes a difference when you have someone else to kind of check in on the different points. And then like, you don't know what you don't know. I love when it comes to coaching, a jar can't read its own label. So having someone else being able to be like, oh, this is actually what's going on right now. You're like, ah, okay.
Yes.
And that really helped me too. So like, this was actually the thing I think that really broke this for me was like, your period is not supposed to suck. And my period always sucked. Always.
Yeah.
It's not supposed to be like incredibly painful. It's not supposed to be incredibly heavy. It's not supposed to be incredibly long. And it's basically your monthly report card of your health as a woman. So if you're having all these symptoms, you're having PMS, you're having like pain, all of those things, it's a sign that you're missing something. Something in your health is like off balance. And so having someone actually help me with like the little shifts that I could make to make that better really, really helped. But yeah, let's talk about the phases. So the first one is your menstrual phase. So that's when you're on your
I know that
period.
one.
That is like inner like winter. So it goes kind of like the seasons. That's winter, however long it is. But one like misconception that I think people have with the menstrual phase is like, she's on her period, she's a moody bitch right now. And you're not necessarily moody. You're not necessarily like, for some people, it could be more just before their period. For some people, it is on their period, but you definitely want more rest and potentially more alone time. Like if you have a partner, you kind of might be like, I kind of feel like a cuddle. And then like 5 minutes later, you might be like, okay, bye. I don't get out of my space. But
Yeah.
the thing is when we honor that, when we actually, rather than pushing ourselves to go and do 700 things, it's like, no, my body is in rest mode right now. It's cleansing, it's detoxing, and it's like, this is time for me to honor that and just take some time, have some rest. But what's really interesting is that when you're on your menstrual phase, the left and right hemispheres of your brain are actually most in sync. So it's a really good time to like look at data, look at your social media metrics, all of those kind of things, because the logical and the like more feminine creative side are more in sync, so they can communicate with each other really well. So it's
Wow.
not necessarily a time to just like, you know, don't think of anything, just like watch TV and curl up in a blanket. I mean, do that. I do that. And I know as an entrepreneur, you can be like, oh, I have to do more. I have to do more.
Yeah.
But I kind of set this like rule for myself about a year ago that the two like worst or heaviest days of my period are my rest days. So my job is to basically rest and to do nothing. And then if I do anything, or if I do feel like I have the energy, that's bonus, rather than like resting, but then feeling guilty about it.
Yeah. And also when you like look at it that way, I think that's really powerful because sometimes we don't think rest is productive. It's like I'm not doing anything. But a lot of the times, like that balance, we're actually creating capacity for the times when we're in go mode. And so I think for you to say, I took 2 days to just like let my body chill, that allows you when you get back into your zone for the energy to flow, for the creativity to come, for all those things to actually be in practice. And that's why I'm such a proponent of one of my good friends, Kate, always taught me about like AB weeks. It was something I implemented in my business. And I'm like so about it because 50% of my time is like go mode in clients, in the weeds, and 50% is like pouring back into myself, my development, my ideas. So it's interesting because I do that on a bi-weekly calendar for entrepreneurs. You could line that up with what phase you're in as well, because if that's the time to be looking at data, that's the time to be deep diving, maybe piecing together things that are working or not working within your business. The fact that that's so, you have that awareness or it's hyper awareness during that phase, like that also is good because then you can prioritize that. So then when you come back into that other phase, have that. So I think that's like super powerful.
Yeah, it's like having an A, B, C, D week.
Yeah,
All the
exactly.
things.
Exactly. There's 4 phases, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. See, this is all brand new. My entire audience is gonna be like, Ashley, have you been living under a fucking rock? And I'm be like, clearly, because I don't know. I don't know any of this. Okay, so that's the phase that most people are familiar with. And I'm curious, are all
Yeah.
phases about a week, or I guess it just depends. Are all phases a little bit different?
Luteal phase is a little bit longer, which comes before the menstrual phase, but they're about the same. Like to make it easy, I would kind of do it by week.
Okay, cool. So menstrual phase is the one we all know, and then the other three are the ones that most of you guys don't know.
The next one is the follicular phase. The next two are like the best. This is when you have energy. It's like spring, right after your period. Your brain is more optimized for creativity, for brainstorming, for planning. So, this is the time to think about like maybe where you are in your strategy or plan some content, things like that, and just really feel into that creativity. Like maybe this is generally when I'll have like really good different content ideas that I haven't had before for like reels or for carousels, or like I'll just have like a download of a message, and it's just that you're kind of in that just more like flowy feminine energy, and the creativity comes a lot more naturally. And then it's also a great time for like your workouts. You can kind of ramp things up a little bit in your period. You kind of maybe want to slow down, maybe just some walking or yoga, things like that. And then when you
Yeah,
get into this phase, you can like you have more energy to go and maybe take some like hit classes or things like that.
got it. Oh my gosh. Okay, that actually it so lines up with the seasons. You're right. Like winter, you're like cuddled in your zone, spending time at home, and then spring, like new energy, new freshness. Okay. So that one's good. Next phase you said is also, I guess summer. Summer. Everyone fucking loves summer. I don't fucking understand, but summer. Summertime, bitches. It's summertime.
Best one is your ovulatory phase. So you have the most energy and you are like magnetic. Like this is the time to create content. This is the time to
This is the
speak
time to
to.
have the babies, right? This is the time where you can
Exactly.
have babies.
Exactly. And
That's
that's
the only
why
thing I
it's
know
like
about this
this.
phase.
We're like magnetizing men to
We're
procreate, to make
magnetizing the
babies.
sperm. We magnetize the sperm in this phase. That's all I'm going to remember from this episode is we just magnetize everything in this phase. Oh my God. I need to get off this podcast. Dear God. Okay. Yes. Continue.
It's a perfect time to communicate, to like go on date nights, to like have more fun, to be more social. Like I'm like I wish I could just bottle the ovulation phase and keep it for all the time, because I'm like let's go to happy hour, let's have a great time, let's hang out, let's call my friends, let's record the content, let's go on Instagram live.
Yeah.
Like it's just like you're like on fire phase. And so knowing that though really helps, because then you can harness it rather than doing something that maybe might not be so productive. And for me, like I love alone time, but I'm also very social. And
Yeah.
for so long, I would kind of like battle it with that. Like sometimes I really don't want to be around people. And then sometimes
Yeah.
I do. And so learning this has really helped me to be like, oh, these are the phases that like it's best to just like leave me on my own, leave me to my own devices. I'm not going to be like the best communicator or the best friend or the most high energy in that time. And then this in my ovulation time is the best time to be like, okay, let's go on a girls trip. Let's do all the things and hang out and have fun. And so that's the best
Love
one.
that. That's the best phase. So then the last phase, I'm assuming, is the prep. We go
A
into
little bit
darkness. You know what?
downhill.
Fall is my favorite season. So I'm gonna enjoy this one. It's gonna be fine. Fall's a great season. It's great.
So I see it like there's like two parts to the luteal phase. There's part one when you still have some of that energy. You're very like task and detail oriented. So this is actually the time where like I could just sit down and I could just sit on Canva all day and I can just like clickety click and move things around, but I don't necessarily want to like record and be on camera. But then there's kind of a dark side to the luteal phase as well. But I will say learning this has been the biggest game changer for me in cycle syncing, in my business, in my mindset, and in my relationship. Because the second part of the luteal phase, at least for me, you can almost like if you look at the graph, it kind of all of your hormones go up and down. And when you start the luteal phase, there's kind of a dip. So there's a first day where I know, like, usually my partner's like, "Oh, I think you're in your luteal phase right now." I'm like,
I love that he knows that. Like
"Oh,
what?
because he was like, God, she seems to be a moody bitch like every month at the same time." I'm like, "Oh, let me tell you about the luteal phase. Like, I probably hate you on this day, and then I love you again tomorrow." So there's
Got
usually
it.
that first day, and it's such a contrast too, because you're in your ovulation, you're like high on life, and then you kind of just have this little crash. Then there's a few days that, at least for me, like pretty normal, pretty balanced. And then the last few days before your period, which is when most people have PMS, is when you can be a lot more moody, a lot more maybe self-critical. And this is where this came up in conversation, is like, this is when we can tend to feel self-doubt, imposter syndrome, things like that. And so when you're aware of this, you can kind of just give yourself grace and be like, you know what? This isn't me right now. This is my hormones right now. And I've navigated this like almost every month. There's a day where like I just kind of feel like shit and I'm just kind of like, what am I doing? Like all
Yeah.
of these questions, all of this doubt, all this heaviness, but knowing about it is just like, okay, I'm going to choose to just not believe this. I'm going to choose to try
Yeah.
and do something that just like makes me feel good today. Like I'm going to rest a little bit, or I'm going to maybe just switch my brain off and actually just go and do some work that I don't really need to think about, because
Yeah.
sometimes we can just feed our problems too much and we can
Yeah.
have that, and it might be just hormonal, but yet we're like, oh my God, like my life is going to end. I have this imposter syndrome. And with things like that, the more that you talk about it, the more that you give it attention, the bigger the problem is going to grow. So when
Yeah.
you're able to just be like, oh, this is just my luteal phase. I'm just like, I'm in a mood today. I'm not like loving on my partner today. I'm not like loving on my business today.
Yeah.
That's just okay. I know I'm going to feel different in a few days.
Oh my God. I like have to download this app. I swear to God, if I could just have your brain in my head or your words in my head. What the fuck did I just say? See, I can't even talk. I'm probably in some type of phase where I lose my brain. But no, truly, like I actually find this so fascinating because I do feel like as women, I will talk to a client that is on top of the world on a fucking Monday. And then the next week it's I can't do that. And I'm like, did I do something? Like it is very interesting because I've always said men and women, I coach them completely different. It's why both my masterminds are women centric and I work with them usually privately. They just operate totally different in business. So I'm curious for you, like, how has this applied to your business? Have you changed your schedule in business? Have you just, I know you said it allowed for a lot of rest, but like, what have you done to implement this into the way that you structure your days and your weeks and your months to be able to create that balance and also just embrace the different phases that you're navigating?
Yeah, I really try to stack as much as possible on my follicular and my ovulation phase. And I think sometimes a problem that we have is like trying to find balance. And sometimes like the
Mm-hmm.
hustle and stuff is almost like criticized, like you shouldn't hustle. But
Yeah.
I think balance is being able to lean into hustle when you want to, or when you feel like it, or when you need to.
Yep.
And then also being able to lean into rest, and like balance is not equal. It's finding a balance. And so for me, that's like if I feel like doing like a 12-hour day in my follicular phase, I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. Let's go. Like I feel like it, rather than sometimes you can kind of tell
Right.
yourself, oh, maybe I shouldn't work until 10 p.m. tonight. Maybe I should stop. But when you know, like, okay, I know I'm going to have this energy now. And
Right.
I will say it's been like a learning curve. So there's been months where
Mhm.
I've been like, I'm gonna record in my ovulation phase, and then I miss it, and I'm in my luteal phase, and I hate the world, and I hate the camera, and I think I look terrible, and I
Yeah.
don't want to record. And then I'm like, I missed the ovulation phase. Like maybe I socialized too
Yeah.
much, or like life just got in the way. So you can't necessarily plan everything about around it, and you can't like, I wouldn't say be super rigid about it, but take the
Yeah.
parts that resonate most with you, learn what the different things are and how you can apply that. And when it comes to business, it's like, what are the things that you need to do and how do they best fit in? So, like, if it's maybe analyzing your social media metrics, then like that's a great thing to do on your menstrual phase. If you want to like, you're testing a strategy and you're like, I'm trying this out for 30 days, that's a great thing to review on your menstrual phase. If you're like, I need to record content, I'm going to be doing podcasts, I'm going to be speaking,
Yeah.
that's great in your ovulation phase. Maybe if you're like writing content or you're writing a book, you're writing blogs, or you're recreating your website, that could be a great option on your follicular phase because you just have that
Yeah.
creativity.
I honestly don't know if I've ever learned so much in a podcast episode in my fucking life. Like truly, like it's really fun to have experts come on because I know cycle syncing is not like what you do. Like that's not like your business is teaching women cycle syncing. So I'm curious, like you have such a huge emphasis on mindset, identity work, cycle syncing, just like the ebbs and flows of them as human beings and business. Can you talk about like how you've integrated all this knowledge, all this personal development in the way that now you approach business? Awesome. You want to tell people what your business is? Because I really want to like help people understand you because you and I do a lot of the same things, but we approach it so differently. And I think that's where the magic really is. So if you want to introduce your business, but also talk about like kind of the unique lens in which you support businesses and female entrepreneurs.
Yeah, so I'm a business and mindset coach, and I really start with the mindset, but I love strategy. And we've talked about this of like finding the
Yes.
balance of both. And
Yeah.
for me, it's like bringing in cycle syncing, bringing in health. So I have a background in health as well. I was a fitness instructor. I
Yeah.
kind of have a varied background in different things. Bringing in all of these things are like, this is what helps you to operate at your best capacity as a human being. And for me as a coach, I feel like my job is to help my clients to do that. It's to help me to do that. And that's really what this
Yeah.
started out as. It's like me trying to do this for myself, but also how can I learn more about the different things that affect people? And this is something I've really learned from Tony Robbins that I feel that he really masters is he will like know things about history. He will know things about geography. He will know all of these different things. So when someone stands up, he can see their age almost and like I'm from Russia. He almost has some little kind of insights in his mind already of like what it might have been growing up in Russia at a certain time. And
Yeah.
that is the practice of patterns over and over again. But kind of like spreading out and getting a little bit out of not being so in the like linear in the one thing. Yes, like master that one thing, but when I think about coaching, it's like it's people, it's helping people. And so the
Yep.
more that I know about people, whether that's hormones, whether that's health, the more I'm able to help people. And so that's why I kind of bring in a lot of different things into my coaching. And also for me, like it really did start out as like, how do I perform at my best? How do I master my mindset? How do I take control of that? And so then when it comes to coaching, I approach coaching from like both the like mindset and the woo woo side, but also there's a lot of practicalness to my mindset coaching and then also the strategy. So I think we need both. If you just have the mindset and you don't have the strategy and you're sitting around meditating and singing kumbaya and you don't do anything, you're not going to grow your business. But in the same lens, if you have the strategy and you don't have the identity to back it up, or your mindset is like full of blocks and fear and self-doubt and all these things, you're not going to execute the strategy. And so you really need both. And that's when they pair together, then you're unstoppable.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I was just on a phone call with one of my really good friends, and she's a business owner, and we shoot shit around business all the time. And she's really starting to crush it. Her business expanding, and she was talking about something really silly. And she's like, "Yeah, like when someone onboards, they pay in one system, and then I send like 4 onboard emails. I have to do it manually every single time." And I was like, "Girl, you got to stop doing that." And she's like, "Why?" She goes, "I have capacity for it. It's not like super time consuming." I said, CEOs don't send onboard emails. You want to make more money, you have to start operating like a CEO. And it's interesting because I get all the time, and I know you probably do as well. Women are like, but I'm making 10K. Like, how do I even fathom making 100K months? How do I even fathom making these big numbers? And they always assume it's like a more scalable offer or more content or like some type of very technical thing. And a lot of times it's operating like a CEO. And I heard someone say this the other day, and I wish I would have like screenshotted it or like could reference where it came from. I think it was Cody Sanchez, amazing, amazing business owner. And she's like, a lot of people, when they go to scale, they think of how do I solve problems in the business? A lot of the times scaling is optimizing the wins of the business. And a lot of times your phases, I could imagine, I'm obviously, this is not something I implement yet, but I really want to. Your phases in optimizing your production of how you can produce at a higher level, or optimizing rest time so that you feel that balance and you can feel rejuvenated when your like energy is up, changing your mindset. Those are things that optimize what you're already doing. And so when you're hiring business mentors or hiring coaches to be like, fix my marketing, fix my sales, for sure, that can help. But usually it's how do I just make better content on less time? How do I have more energy around what I'm doing? How do I coach at a higher level so I can bring in women who want to pay me $10,000 instead of $2,000? Like, it's so interesting because a lot of what you emulate and do in your business is exactly what it takes to scale, which is optimizing you as a business owner. So I'm curious, like when people come to you, what are they hiring you for? But then what are you actually working on with them once you're like, going through and optimizing themselves, their mindset, their business? Like, what is that? I guess because there's duality for both, but what does that contrast look like?
They typically hire me for strategy. I want to figure out how to do it, how to make it. So I also do kind of a heavy onboarding process because for me, the way I find the balance of the strategy and the mindset in the coaching is knowing as much about my clients as I can. So I'll ask a lot of questions in onboarding about their personal life because like you said, like time matters and making it easier and making it simpler. Like I'm a huge fan of doing that. And so what's going on in your personal life? Like, do you have 6 kids? Do you have like other things going on? And then in their
Yeah.
mindset, like what are the blocks that you've been facing? And most people, they have an idea and they have, let's say, a label, like I've been struggling with perfectionism or procrastination or self doubt. But what I really try to do is like dig deeper in that in calls. It's interesting. This is something that I didn't really own for a long time, but it's almost like a natural skill I have. Like I can just see the gaps. I can hear someone talk and it's practice too, like so many years of patterns, so many years of working with female entrepreneurs and kind of knowing like, yeah, when you take this next step, this is likely how you're going to feel. Or when you're behaving like this is likely the underlying mindset block that's going on. And I think that's often where a lot of people also kind of miss out on mindset is like I said, a jar can't read its own label. You don't always know all of your blocks. You might know some of them, but when I'm working with clients, it's really like digging deeper and being like, okay, what is going on underneath this that could be actually harming you? So an example is I was at an event and I was speaking and we were working through quarterly planning. We were at this kind of phase of the workshop where we were doing tasks, like what are the tasks that you're going to do to achieve this goal? And somebody raised their hand and said, how do I like get myself to do it when I'm not doing it? And I could have just said, oh, well, like, I don't know, like put it in your calendar. Okay. But for me, it's more like, okay, why are you not doing it? Like, what is the block? And so for me, coaching is always asking questions and diving deeper. So when I asked more questions, what we found out the real block was that she wanted to launch an in-person event. She was launching it, but she was terrified that nobody was going to show up. She was terrified that like that feeling of launching something when it's like, what if 2 people sign up and I say that there's like 10 spaces and all that feelings that like we've all felt at some point. And so we realized that was the real problem. Whereas if she had just tried to solve the problem of like, I'm not doing the work, I'm just going to like start a new schedule or implement some strategy thing, she wouldn't have actually created the shift. So what we did was I took her on this journey of like, I kind of see coaching someone through a mindset block as like a journey. And so we get leverage and we find out like, okay, why have you been doing that? What has that cost you? What has that prevented you from? And even those questions are so powerful because you really start to realize like how it's impacting your life, how it's impacting your business. And I was asking her, like, why did you start this business? Why did you want to help people? And we really got more connected to that emotional side. And then we kind of like attach pain to not doing it. So a lot of people, I think, especially in the kind of surface level mindset work and almost like toxic positivity are afraid to go to the pain. Like, no, we have to be positive all the time. We have to keep being positive and happy and use good language and all of these things. But actually, the power is in the pain. So when we face the pain, that is where we break free from it. So
Yeah.
going to the journey of like, okay, and what happens if you don't change this? What has it cost you? And it was beautiful because she went on this emotional journey and she was crying. And then when we've gone through that, we've really faced the pain. We then bring it back to like, okay, what attaching pleasure to it? Because your brain and your like behavior acts on pain and pleasure. So if you attach too much pain to something, you're not going to do it. If you attach pleasure to something, you're going to do it. And so if we find that balance of attaching pain to not doing it and attaching pleasure to doing it, that's where you really create a breakthrough. And so we created that shift and she sold out her event. She then launched many more events after that. And she texted me later and said 6 months later, she had 4x her business. And that's from one conversation. And she did the work. She had the strategy. She went and implemented. But that opportunity of being able to just be like, what is the real block? If I solve that, then everything is limitless. And then we gave her the strategy and we talked like, okay, well, when are you going to work? What has been preventing you from work? But you need the mindset first and then add in the strategy. Because if you add in the strategy first, like I said, if your mindset is preventing you, then you're not going to move forward with the strategy.
Yeah, that's really powerful. I feel like a lot of women, it's really interesting when I talk to women about, what do you guys like to hear on the podcast and everything else? Like women just love hearing how people think. And a lot of the times what helps business owners scale is changing the way that they think about problems and changing the way that they tackle problems, not necessarily like having a strategy to tackle the problem. It's more so like, what is the shift that you have to have in your brain to be able to look at things differently? So I'm curious for you, because I know people are going to listen to this episode and be like, this bitch knows her shit. You have like literally dropped things I've never even heard of and things that I'm like, I need to write that down. I need to write that down. How do you integrate personal development into your day-to-day? Like you're in coaching, you're scaling your business, you have clients, like there's only so many hours in the day. Obviously in certain spaces of our period, we also like don't even want to do anything. Like, are you a podcast girly? Are you reading a lot of books? How are you bringing in so much knowledge in literally just the last couple of years, especially? Like, what is that process for you?
Reading for sure. Feeding your mind is really important. So it's kind of like garbage in, garbage out. And so if you're putting flowers in, you're going to get flowers out or whatever. So podcasts and books, audiobooks. I love walking. I would walk like all day. So if I can match those two things together, if I can walk and I can listen to a podcast or listen to an audiobook, and then it's applying it. It's asking yourself, like, how can I apply this right now? And then the embodiment piece. If you are like learning all of these things, you're taking all of these things in, and it's just sitting in your mind, you're not going to implement it. So it's kind of bringing it from the mind into the body. Even movement, the act of like walking while you're listening to something engages your body more. Your physiology is so important. So if you're like, and this is a practice too that has helped me with mindset. If you're, sometimes when people are talking about a problem and they're like slunched over and they're like, yeah, and their voice is really slow and like, oh, I have this problem. When you create a physiological shift, you approach the problem differently. So there's been studies that like if you smile for 20 minutes a day, that had a better effect on depression than medication did.
Wow.
There's so many things like the power poses, the Harvard study of like stand in your power pose and you feel better. And some of those things can seem a little bit like, oh, okay, here we go again in my power pose. But actually, when you implement it and you find a way that works for you, maybe it's moving, maybe it's walking, maybe it's breathing, maybe it's putting your hands on your heart. When you find a way to just kind of connect more into the body and give yourself space too, give yourself space to think about all of these things that you're putting into your mind and that you're learning, then allows you to implement.
I mean, for me, I'm a walker. Like if I walk, I feel like it's like I'm like moving forward or something. There's something in my brain. I'm like, I'm moving forward. I'm doing something. So I have found like walking in the morning is really good for me. I don't like to do it, but like when I do it, it totally changes my day. How do you identify that thing for you? Is it testing it out? Do you feel like that's the right thing to hire a coach for? Like, is it just, like listen to podcasts and be like, all right, like, how do you want to absorb this information? Like, how did you figure out what your like trigger things that really change your mood, change your energy? What is that process?
The biggest thing is almost like letting go of everything that you have been so far in your life, because for so many of us, we've been practicing the same patterns for our entire life, for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And so our beliefs about like whether I like walking or not, whether I'm a woo-woo person or not, whether I'm a mindset person or not, whether I'm a book, like we have such conviction about that. But if you actually think about it and maybe start to try different things and question it, like, is that true? Do I really not like books? Do I really not like walking? Do I really find meditating boring? Have I maybe could I try a different type of meditation? And like you said, it's trying a lot of different things and finding what works for you, because the personal development world tells you so much about, I need to do 7,000 things. I need to wake up at 5 a.m., do the cold plunge, do all of these things, but actually you need to do what's right for you. And for me, I've tried all of those things. I've had my 5 a.m. phases, I've had my cold plunge phases, and I found what really works for me. And there's different energy. And so for me, it's if I want to command a more fiery energy out of myself, I will play music and I'll dance. If I want to command a more connected energy out of myself, I will put my hands on my heart and I will breathe. And there's a lot of studies around that too, of there's a thing called heart math. And basically when you breathe into your heart and you do repetitive deep breaths, your brain waves and your heart waves literally sync up. So before it's they're all chaotic all over the place. And then after doing the breathing, they're fully in sync. And so if you think about it, if you're doing things like that, the effect that that's going to have on your body, on your mind, on your ability to problem solve, on your ability to communicate, on your ability to show up in your business is going to have a huge impact. So I would say try a lot of different things and then see what resonates for you and let go of all the shoulds. I should do this, I should do that.
That's so powerful. Okay, I want to ask you a rapid fire question, just top of your brain, what comes up. It can be a podcast, a book, whatever, a study, the 3 resources that you're these changed my life. Go look at them. For anyone listening, what are the top 3? You don't have to say 3, but what are the top 3 that come to your brain right now? And it better be Full Plate of Pasta podcast. That's already 1. So 3 more that you really recommend.
Full Plate of Pasta podcast, for sure. These conversations,
for sure.
Like you said, it's when you are able to listen to other people's conversations, you're able to get into their mind. And so there's this saying of you become the 5 people you spend your time around. If you don't have great people in your life, go and find them. Go and find them online. Go and sit in. It's we're having a coffee right now. Come and have a coffee with us. Go and have a coffee with some of the greatest people in your industry and learn from them. And then I'll just give one, because you said quick. And the biggest one for me has been Tony Robbins events. I have to say, hands down, it's
I've never been. I feel I need to go.
You have to go. It's different than any event I've ever been to in my life. You get the conditioning into your body. You take action in the moment. You learn all the mindset things. It's incredible. It changed my entire life.
Okay, I'm so glad you said that, because I've always wanted to go, and I'm I just need to do it. I haven't been to a ton of events. I went to the St. Louis Women's TED Talk a couple years ago, and that was really cool. I remember begging my boss to give me a day off to go. I was I need to go to more of these. I was introduced to such incredible people and that I now follow. And I think exposure is so important too. When we feel tight in ourselves, sometimes we look to ourselves for answers. And honestly, sometimes there's answers right in front of us. So it's just opening your mind, opening your ideas, and starting your day. I love that philosophy really that you have around go grab coffee with the biggest influencer in your space. You're so right. I'm a little Starbucks, and I could absolutely right after this podcast go and listen to Tony Robbins or listen to whoever. And it's almost you're sitting down with them. That's why I love podcasts. So I love it. Thank you so much. I have one final question for you, and it can be mindset related or it can be something totally off the wall. Mine, everyone knows I'm a pink drink girl right now, but what are you indulging on right now? What's one thing in your life, any category that you're just I'm loving right now, I'm so into?
There's a book that I'm obsessed with right now. It's called Unreasonable Hospitality. I don't know if you've read it, but it's the story of a restaurant and how they grew, and this guy, it's actually insane. I cry every time I listen to it, and it's so
a book
interesting.
And you're crying?
Yeah. Oh, I cry anything. Oh, a bird could fly outside and I would cry. But it's
okay.
It's insane because there's so much just hospitality and how you think about business and how you think about serving clients and how you think about going the extra mile. And I really think going the extra mile in your relationship, in your health, in your career, in your business, in your finances is the thing that will change your life. And so you're hearing this story and you're going on this journey, but it's just like, it's beautifully written. I've listened to so many books, and this is one of my favorite that I've listened to probably in the last year.
Unreasonable hospitality.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Yes.
We're going to link that for all of you guys down below. I love it. I don't think you could have ended this podcast any better. Like, I'm so inspired by you. I just feel like I could listen to a podcast episode from you every single day. You're like dropping shit that I'm like, I've never heard any of this shit before. So I appreciate you being on the podcast. Thank you so much for spending your morning with us. Like, it was so much fun.
Thank you so much. That was an amazing conversation.